So this is the first build where there's been like major reworks of some of the core systems of Covenant. And honestly, if you were to say this is why they need to delay the expansion, you might be right. This whole system here, not the Covenants entirely, but the Soulbinds, I just I don't have a resounding confidence in. And so many things have changed, and so many people are still so critical about the balance of them that I'm not sure they'll ever get them right. It feels like one of those things that is definitely going to launch in a bad state, and it's just going to have to get better over time. And no matter how much time they waste on it, it's just not going to be, it's never going to actually get any better. There's just too many choices there. So we talked a lot about them trying to overwhelm you with choices. And for the most part, the suite of covenants, I think, is working well. But it's just the soul binds themselves that, especially with how they unlock, I don't think it's ever going to work out. But anyway, we're going to take a look at all of it and how it pertains to tanks again. So welcome back to the series where we compare all the tank changes. I haven't been playing a lot of beta, unfortunately. I've basically played none this week, and I'd like to return to it next week. We'll see how it goes. But I've been playing a lot of PTR. I'm still trying to follow this stuff, so just fair warning. But I do think a lot of this stuff is not necessarily anything that you need to see other than read it. So one thing that I did notice immediately that I didn't want to forget to bring up, Arcane Torrent is now back to restoring 1 holy power. I don't know. I feel like that might have been that way for a while now because holy power has been in the game the whole time, the beta the whole time. But that's a really big change. A lot of people are still playing Blood Elf Paladin. But let's get to it. So they made some massive changes to basically the soul binds in general, and a lot of that stuff is really something you're going to want to know if you're interested in a very specific covenant. I'm not going to read all of these because it's just going to take forever, but you're going to see a lot of, just basically flat out buffs. Your damaging spells and abilities have a chance to decrease your target movement speed by 45%. And I think probably the way to look at this is that they're trying to make these things, like we were just saying, like overwhelmingly, there's just so many different choices that you really can't go wrong with any of them. Maybe there'll be niches, maybe there'll be things that are, mathematically inferior or superior, but for the most part, like, unless you literally didn't take any of these, you're going to be very, very powerful compared to, regardless of what you pick, which covenant you pick specifically. So, of course, there's the 3 options. They did not change anything in Pelagos, which is funny because the going meme has been that Pelagos is very, very powerful. He's got a lot of good things, and they didn't change anything with him. But they basically buffed everything else. General Draven's got some changes too, so... But there's a lot going on here. Like I said, this would be a good option to read what your favorite covenant might be. For me, mine would be Dreamweaver. So activating your Knife A class ability puts flowers at your feet and then increases your haste by 15%. And then we're going to take a look at the Soulbind calculator too, because they did a lot more than just that. When you take damage that would kill you, instead rejuvenate with a wild seed. If the wild seed takes more blah, 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 you die. The effect can only occur once every 10 minutes. Wow. Now that's a big buff, right? So I'm excited to see what the final look at this is. I think, like I said, the general takeaway here is that they're just trying to make everything stronger about these systems so that there's not any like huge disparity and that no matter what you pick, you have some big power coming your way. But the main change that they made here is they flipped the covenant system. So if you haven't seen it before somehow, these things used to be the top. And now they just flipped it, I think. Or maybe they just took the bottom and flopped it with the top. I don't know what else. Like, I don't actually remember exactly. Well, let's see. I do remember this one. Let's see exactly if I can figure it out. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell because there's so many slots like this. But yeah, I think they just actually took the bottom and replaced it with the top and vice versa. So now we have the cheat death on the first thing you can get. And the reason that they might have did this is because I think they wanted to have these defining abilities be something that you don't have to wait months for. But I'm not really sure what the purpose of it is. Like, because now, this easily might look like maybe this becomes the defining ability and then you still have to wait for this. So, like, I wouldn't really say like the top and the bottom one were particularly different in their goals. So... Anyway, they flipped it. It's interesting. The Covenant or the Soulbind calculator on Wowhead will be in the description as well. Make sure you check it out. Start having a look at it. I don't want to talk too much about this stuff because it's just there's way too much to talk about. But you could have a look. There's a lot going on here, and a lot of the it's just wild buffs to all these spells. So it might be interesting to you. But what we definitely want to talk about is these conduit changes. So, like I said about Soulbinds, I would not say that about conduits. I think conduits have been working really well, and I think they're in a great state. I really love the idea of conduits, like absolutely love it. But I'm disheartened to see some of these changes because Blood DK was already. So the thing about Blood DK's conduits is that I feel like they have the best by a mile. Like if you put every other tank's conduit suite, not just endurance or not any specific one, but all of them together, I think Blood DK still has the best options. But they've made some massive changes to this, which is really brutal. Rune Tap heals you and your party down from 5% to 2%. And it used to go from 5% to 15% now. So it used to start at this and triple all the way by the end. Now it goes from 2 to basically under double. I mean, it's about double, like on average, right? So it would double by about, you probably get this around heroic eye level. Now you're not even going to get back to 5%. Okay, so that's a huge nerf. I mean, that is ridiculous. Frankly, it didn't really do that much anyway. I had tried it out a lot. Even at 5%, it wasn't that good. So now that it's going to be the highest you're going to get is 4.8%. I like the concept. It's a cool idea. It's just Rune Tap isn't used that often. But I'm definitely disheartened to see this, especially because a lot of people, I don't know, I'm starting to feed in a little bit too much here to what other people are saying about DK because I haven't played as much, but people are saying that's like a non-viable tank all of a sudden. I don't know where this is coming from because the spec and the class looks amazing to me. Like the kit is like absurdly good, but I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, definitely disappointed with that, but we'll see how it plays out. It would have been really nice in raid, of course, but it's your party, so I'm pretty sure it's only the 5 people in your actual group, even within the raid. And then here's another ridiculous one. I mean, these are just ridiculous changes. Blood Boil increases the damage enemy take by Blood Plague by 1% for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, which is like good. I used this a lot and it was good. My damage still sucked and it was good. So it used to go from 1% to 10%. Now it goes from 1% to 2.4%. Like, what the fuck? Oh my god, that's ridiculous nerfs to these things. So disappointing again, because obviously offense Blood DK is a big problem. I don't know, maybe at 10% it was wild. I never got it past 1%. It's hard to even get these. I wasn't playing enough, I guess, but I found it hard to get these without raids. A lot of my gear comes from raids, so these people were playing 5-mans around the clock, 24/7. They're getting gear, but I play like a couple hours a week when I was playing it often, and I just wasn't getting any upgrades for anything. So it's hard for me to test these. Anyway, Meat Shield. Now this is an interesting one. Increases the duration of Dancing Rune Weapon by 3 seconds, and while active, your parries increase maximum health by 2%, stacking up to 2 times 15 seconds. So this conduit just sucks. And the fact that they're buffing the baseline, but then nerfing the overall, I think it makes it even worse. But I like the concept of buffing the baseline, because I felt like this conduit wouldn't even be thought of until you got at least 5 or higher. Now you don't have to worry about that. You never have to think of it, probably. Because, yeah, certainly 4.8% is not a significant number. I mean, considering it's going to stack twice, so for a very small period of time, your parries increase your maximum health by like 8 or I guess 9% or something, 10%. Okay, so within Dancing Rune Weapon CD, it does last 3% longer. That's cool. It's a great. I like the conduits concept. It's just the health thing is just way too specific and way too little, I feel like. So, but that's an endurance conduit. So we had that competing with this, and this was just a clear winner. Now at least they're a little bit more competitive, I guess. Withering Plague. Heartstrike deals 15% increased damage and inflicted to increased damage to enemies infected by Blood Plague. Now, this one is actually a big buff. So it starts at 10 used to, and now it goes to 35. Now it starts at 15 and goes all the way to 36. So it's actually, it's going to ramp up way quicker, and it's going to start higher. And I'll tell you, this is good. I like this because Heartstrike was actually like top damage on some pulls with Rune Weapon and stuff up. So I really, I'd like to see the damage ones buffed because I think it's pretty clear that Blood DK's offensive kit has stagnated over the years. They really don't have any good options, especially considering Dancing Rune Weapon continues to be on the GCD. I'm not a big fan of that because all the other offensive tank CDs are off the GCD now. Doesn't make any sense to me. But regardless, the fact that they nerfed this one, which, like I said, I don't know. I never had it at 10%. Maybe it was ridiculous. It's still starting, like, by the time we get it's just not a lot. You know what I mean? I feel like it's really not a lot, but it does stack up to 3 times. So I think probably 10% was too much. But anyway, Withering Plague, this is a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing how this works. So all in all, you know, I'm saddened by Blood Bond. It's probably something that did need to be nerfed, because 15%, that was probably too much. I think it should go maybe to 7 or 8% though. 4.8%. That's to still be under 5% is just kind of wild. So keep an eye on this. Maybe that'll still change. Now there's a bunch of other ones. I read through them. There's nothing that you could possibly use as blood to my knowledge. But you never know. Maybe they sneak something like that in here. I don't think so, though. Maybe with like a legendary plus a conduit. I doubt it, though. Okay, so now there's these ones, too, which is really, again, there's a lot of these changes. So Brutal Grass. Now, this is for Abomination Limb. So a lot of these are like specific to the Covenant. Okay, so Brutal Grass was only for Necrolord. Used to be 50% increased damage to enemies it pulls to you. Now it is 15% increased damage, period. And that goes from 15% to 36%. But they used to go from 50% to 125. And then, like I said, I don't know exactly how long this lasted. I've never actually used this conduit once. But I'd imagine it didn't last very long. Or maybe it was permanent. I don't know. But either way, this is going to be way better, I think. This overall will be a way bigger DPS increase. And, like, you know, the more I talk about it, the more I think, like, maybe Necrolord has to be the play just to get more offense, because it's a lot of damage. This ability does a lot of damage, and it's this is a good conduit now. So, anyway, Shield Resilience. Icebound. Now, that's almost funny talking about this, because now you read this one. Icebound Fortitude's cooldown is reduced by 20 seconds baseline, okay? But the thing is, it starts higher and ends quicker, basically, like plateaus quicker. So up to 48% or 48 seconds. Was going to go a full minute off, which would have been nice. Obviously, Icebound 3-minute CD, so it would have been a 2-minute CD. I'll tell you though, 48 seconds is still nothing to sneeze at. But the really funny thing about this is it's a finesse conduit. Yeah, so I could see myself using this pretty severely, honestly. This is what I was talking about. Like, Blood DK has some of the best finesse conduits. Like, if you look at every other tank specs finesse conduits, I don't think they have even one good one. And Blood has like a bunch of good ones. So it's kind of weird. I'm not sure that's something that they should balance around. Like, I think that's just bad design. It's not tuning, you know what I mean? But it is interesting to me. And then Fleeting Wind. Now it says finesse conduit. I think it always was, unless I'm misremembering what this is. But it does say it's another finesse conduit. Death's Advance grants an additional 15% or 15% movement speed over the first 3 seconds. And then there's ranks. Maybe this was not in the game at all or something. I don't know. But there's ranks here going from 15 all the way to 36%. So these are great. I mean, this is a finesse conduit. This is great. Getting more movement speed, especially considering Death's Advance has been buffed already thanks to the extra rank of it. It's very good. I would like these to be, you know, something I use. It's just whether or not you can use them. Everybody keeps saying finesse conduits are never going to be used by anyone. I think if there is a good place to see a finesse conduit strive, it's going to be as a tank. So I'm satisfied with that. We'll see how good that is. And especially because, you know, you can just... I can throw this on a conduit or on a Soulbind that I don't plan on using just for will content. And this kind of thing is just awesome. Having 36% more speed for the first 3 seconds, even if it's first 3 seconds only. Like, this was also really nice in a BFA. We had an Azerite trait that I used a lot because it was on a really good chest piece. So anyway, Hardened Bones, another endurance conduit. While Lichborn is active, the damage you take is reduced by 6% starting. But then again, plateaus quicker, gets to only 14%. But still, I think it's a net buff, right? I mean, it takes a while for it to plateau. Yeah, they actually kind of highlight the numbers here. So, yeah, plateaus. This would probably be into Myth. I don't actually know how this works, but yeah, this will be like well into the launch. You know, you won't get this for a while. So this is really nice because Lichborn is an excellent CD, and I like this concept. This was a really good endurance conduit. Impenetrable Gloom. This is Swarming Mist potency conduit. Swarming Mist no longer damage, and so it's just Swarming Mist dodge chance is increased by 3% and damage is increased by 12.5%. Oh wow. So this is a huge buff. So it used to be damage and dodge percent increased by 5% for the first 4 seconds. Now the dodge chance is increased by 3%, but the damage is increased by 12.5% the whole way. It's pretty wild, actually. It's really wild, but it does... Well, this is probably better. It's hard to compare these two things because they were doing much different things, but it still gets all the way up to 30%. So, these are separate numbers though, so I'm not sure. This one must not be modified. It's only this 12.5% that gets modified. Yeah, so that's only the damage increase, but yeah, it's really good. Anyway, Insatiable Appetite. Death Strike's minimum healing is increased by 1%. Okay. But this is a big nerf in reality. It goes all the way from 1% to 8% in the old days. Now it's 1% to 2.4%. So this one's a weird one because a lot of, basically if you're actually tanking actively, like the minimum healing on Death Strike it's unlikely to come into play. Let's put it that way. But I'm sure, somebody who's smarter than me will be able to find some way that this could be valuable if it was 8%. But yeah, now that it's only 2.4%, do these things need nerfs is the question. We'll see how they play against other classes. But okay, Proliferation. That's the one we actually talked a lot about in the recent weeks. Potency Conduit, Shackled and Worthy this time. Duration is increased by 3 seconds, and its damage is increased by 20%. So now it goes all the way up to 48%. It's pretty wild, actually. So that's a really good one. 48%. We talked a lot about this recently. Heavily considered Bastion or Conduit or whatever, the Kyrian Covenant. But yeah, I don't think I'll do it in the end. Reinforced Shell. Here's another really cool one. Zone's radius is increased, first of all. But the duration is increased by 2 seconds. But again, nerfed. Used to be 1 second all the way up to 8. Now it's 2, only up to 4.8. So I think they're doing this with a lot of them at this point. But it's still, I liked it better when it was higher. I thought it was cool. I'd like these things to be more powerful because you have to choose. You can't use all of them, So it's like, oh, I could throw this on for this week, this fight or something like that. Switch Soulbinds to one that has it. Obviously, you can't change conduits freely, much to the dismay of many, but I like the decision making. But now that these decisions are less important, I don't know if it matters anymore. Like, maybe that's what they're after. Like I said, they're trying to overwhelm you with decisions, but not, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that's cool. I love the concept, though. This is such a cool one. I'm really looking forward to this because this is just free extra absorb. Like, as long as you're taking damage for the 4.5 seconds after you use it, this is really, really good. Think of a fight where there's just constant pulsing shadow damage. I'm sure there's going to be plenty. And it's going to be really, DK is going to be so good in the raid. I can't even imagine. Anyway, Spirit Drain. Another great one, I feel like. Another great finesse conduit, which doesn't look like a finesse conduit to me. Successfully interrupting an enemy with Mind Freeze grants 10 runic power. This just seems like it's going to be really good, doesn't it? Now it can go all the way up to 24 runic power. Are you kidding me? That's a lot. That's a lot of runic power. It went from 5 to 20, though. So the scaling has lessened, but the base starts higher. So in the end, we get to a higher point. Another great finesse conduit. Unending Grip. Death Grip slows the movement speed by 25% for 5 seconds. Now it's down to 20% for 3 seconds. This is a huge nerf. Really, the duration being nerfed is the big thing. That's also not scaling. It starts at 20 instead of 25 and goes only up to 48. So this is probably more like a PvP talent. I can't imagine I would ever use this. I don't know why you would use this for PvE. Like, if you death grip something, it's now closer to you. So why would you slow it? What's the point in that? It's got to be a PvP thing. But anyway, here's the one that we've been, heavily considering. Death's Due. Pretty satisfied with this. This kind of makes everything, kind of makes the heart stop beating, like a little bit of reprieve from all the worry I had. Death's Due deals 50% increased damage, all the way up to 120%. Okay, so if they nerf the rest of the offensive stuff and they buff this might, first of all, they buffed all of them, so this might not even be the best one. I still think the Brutal Grasp might end up being the best one. But this is because that ability already does a ton of damage. First of all, D&D does not, like, it doesn't, Death's Due does not increase the damage the spell does, unless they changed that somewhat recently and I missed it. This is just 120% buff to Death and Decay. Is that good? It's not that good, but it's still a nice thing to have because D&D should be down all the time. I'm actually really looking forward to this ability. Like, they changed it, and obviously people think it's shit now, but like, it's still fun. I love the way it looks. I love the Covenant. I'm really looking forward to using this, and I really hope it does good damage, because that's the problem. I feel like if I want to do good damage, I have to take any of the other 3 covenants, because this literally does not improve my damage at all. I mean, it gives you strength, but yeah, it's not compared to the other ones that just do flat upright, you know, just do damage out of the gate. It's a lot harder for threat. So that's Blood Decay. A lot of changes. I would say that I'm not sure why they're making so many changes to this, but this, again, if you're thinking about, hey, why did they delay this expansion? Here's the reason. These kind of changes are what need to be hammered out, I guess. So anyway, let's quickly go through the other class. There's a lot to get through still, but that was Bloodhead like the most. So anyway, Vengeance has some pretty interesting ones. When this is Endurance, when Sigil of Silence ends, enemy affected deal 5% reduced magic to you for 8 seconds. So was 5 all the way to 20. Wait, what is this? Why does it say 8 seconds, but it's 5%? Okay, so they changed this, but that's not what's being modified. It's the amount of damage it does. So this is actually really good, but it's been nerfed. So 5% all the way only to 12% now. But I mean, that's really good. 12% magic reduction for 8 seconds. I just don't know, how viable compared to the other ones it would be. Soul Furnace. Soul fragments you consume increase the damage of your next soul cleave by 30%. Oh, that's actually kind of crazy. That's a potency conduit. Holy shit, 30% all the way up to 75%. Holy shit. Yeah, see, Vengeance just doesn't do enough offense. They really need a buff. Come on, what are you doing? Why is Blood one's getting nerfed and Vengeance one's getting... This is why I can't take these people seriously. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, you got to see the bigger picture, so I'm looking forward to that. But it's just kind of weird to see, like... I guess this conduit just sucked, though. You know what I mean? Anyway... okay, so Sinful Brand. Here's a big change. Jick's been heavily talking about this. Me too, for a long time. A lot of reasons to like Sinful Brand, but it's basically been nerfed back to where it was a while back. It didn't really do good offense on a single target. It was only ever really good when you had the meta Sinful Brand spread, and then they buffed that, and I was like, what the hell does she do? But now, yeah, so it's a little bit more realistic, I think. But that's not even what most people are taking. Sinful Brand, like, to me, looks like the clear winner, but a lot of people are taking that pure offensive one from Kyrian and doing a lot of crazy stuff with that. So anyway, Brooding Pool. Now this is for the Necrolord ability, I believe. Fodder to the Flame, that's got to be it. Increase the duration of Fodder to the Flame by 5 seconds. This hasn't actually changed. I don't know why it says 5.0, but it's because it's no longer 5 with even numbers all the way to 20. It's 5 to 12. So I feel like that's one of the worst conduit, or one of the worst Covenant abilities in the entire game. So again, surprised to see that nerfed. Growing Inferno, Immolation Auras damage increases by 10%. This is really good, but it's been slightly nerfed. I mean, extremely, like, slight. It's not really much at all. Increase Scrutiny. Reduce the cooldown of Sinful Brand by 5 seconds baseline. But it doesn't go very high. It used to start at 1 second, go all the way to 15, which seems like a bit ridiculous. Now it goes from 5 to 12. So I'd say, like, on average, that's a buff. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to end up being a nerf. Still, Sinful Brand, very powerful. Probably one of the most, the pound for pound best Covenant ability for any tank, I feel like. I don't know. Nowadays, things have been in flux, but this just seems like it's going to be so valuable because it's got so many interactions. Okay, Repeat Decree. Now, this is going to nerf the thing we were just talking about slightly, but it's in the end, it's not really going to change anything. So this Echo of the Sigil is a big part of why Demon Hunter damage is so high right now. So the base is 25%, and maybe that's why it looks so good in the beta, but it's still going to get all the way to 60%, so this is still going to be really good. Shattered Restoration, the healing of shattered souls is increased by 5%, so that's big nerf there. I mean, that's a huge nerf, and I guess that's not surprising, but it's a massive nerf. Pretty much halved the whole thing. Unnatural Malice increases the damage of the Hunt, so this is the Hunt one. And that's a pretty, I don't think a lot of people are excited to take that, but they did buff the damage. Goes from 25 now to 60%, so that's pretty good. Much better. I think the Hunt is actually probably my second favorite one for sure. I would use that. I don't think I would take the Bastion one. I don't like the concept. Now, Druid, there's actually no changes. I'm surprised by this, considering every other tank got massive changes. Druid is not even, well, Paladin didn't either, actually, but anyway. Druid is just not there. They only changed Dreamwalk. That's pretty much it. So Thrash, you get it at 11 or something now. So Interesting. But yeah, I guess the fact that you don't get Thrash at level 10, it's kind of wild. But Dreamwalk at level 10, I want to do a leveling thing on Druid and see if you could port all over the world with that, because that seems like you would just go into Legion, get Dreamwalk, and then you could port all over the world while you're leveling if you level in Classic. So anyway, okay, so Monk, this one's some pretty relatively big ones again. Celestial Effervescence. While under the effects of Celestial Brew, your effects that heal you are increased by 19%, going all the way to 45. That's a pretty big one. The problem is Celestial Brew is so strong, even after all these nerfs and the changes and the stuff that's changed over the months. It's still so powerful. It's like, I don't know if I want the healing too. I don't think I would take that. You know what I mean? Because first of all, you have to be sure. Like, it's hard to use. Like, if you use the brew and it goes away immediately, I mean, unless I'm misunderstanding the conduit, it's going to go, the heal part is going to be gone too, right? So I don't know how usable that's going to be, but it sounds really powerful at 45%. Evasive Strike. During Shuffle, Heavy Stagger has a now 2.5% chance to heal you instead of dealing damage. That's freaking ridiculous. And it's been buffed all the way up to 6%. So Brewmaster getting even stronger defensively with some of these changes. And these are both Endurance Conduits. So I think the clear winner here would be here if you were choosing between the two. Scalding Brew. Keg Smash deals an additional 7.5% damage to targets affected by Breath of Fire. Big offensive buff to Brewmaster, which is something that apparently they needed too, just like Blood DK. Walk with the Ox. Abilities that grant Shuffle reduce the cooldown of Invoke Nizao, the Black Ox. I love this one. But Nizao deals an additional 25% damage. I wish it could be different, but I know why it's only 0.5 seconds. Imagine if it was like, if this was modified, you can get this up to like 5 seconds, and you just have Nizao up permanently. But I like the concept here. Buffing the damage on him is nice because he doesn't really do much damage at all. Unless you use them really well. Then there's again a bunch of Soulbind stuff here. Bone Marrow, the one for that has been buffed to 40%. Shadow damage or healing is increased by 40%, and it goes all the way up to 96%. So you're seeing a lot of these buffs, especially for the tanks that aren't doing really good damage. They're kind of patching in the conduits to make their Covenant abilities just help their kit offensively. Dizzying Tumble targets affected by your leg sweep deals 6.3% less damage, and that's a finesse one. So we talked a lot about other tanks having good finesse ones, and that's pretty good. If you can get this to 15% after leg sweep, that's like, oh damn, that's pretty damn good. But it being a finesse one is so weird because it's basically that should really be an endurance conduit. But I guess it's like they don't want it to be looked at as a pure defensive thing, because they deal less damage, right? This is not something to overlook here, and I almost just did. It's not just they deal less damage to you, right? It's they deal less damage. So Windwalker uses this. That's pretty big, 15% damage reduction, and you could also use it for your co-tank or something like that if there's anything stunnable in the raid. So anyway, that's pretty good. But it's only 5 seconds. Anyway, Fortifying Ingredients. Fortifying Brew grants you a shield equal to 12% of your maximum health. And again, it's been buffed, but it's like, do we want that? Fortifying Brew so strong anyway, not up often enough. It feels like this would just be kind of useless, especially now compared to this one here. This just seems like it'd be really damn good. I'd love to see this, at 6% in play. How often you get to Heavy Stagger and how often it heals you, because it doesn't actually say how often. It just says has a... Oh, no. Of course, that's the thing. Has a 6% chance to heal you. Oh, I'm an idiot. I thought the amount that it healed you was what was getting better. I'm glad I looked at this a second time. So 6%. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, Grounding Breath. When casting Vivify on yourself, its healing is increased by 15%, has a 30% chance to refund its cost, so up to 36%. I don't know how good that's going to be for Guardian, but I could see... there being some application there. If this went up even higher, like if this somehow got to like 100%, then it'd be like, oh shit, now all of a sudden you're like just literally spamming Vivifying yourself, and that's probably not what they want, but we'll see. Harm Denial. Expel Harm's healing is increased by 25%, and that again has been buffed all the way up to 60%. So yet again, another big buff to Brewmaster conduits. Imbued Reflection. This is Fallen Order one. Monk deals 36% more damage and healing. And again, a massive buff. So like we saw with Blood DK, buffs across the board for the ones for the Covenant abilities. Lingering Numbness. When paralysis ends, your target's movement speed is reduced by up to 40% and goes all the way up to 96%. So I mean, that's a 96% movement speed reduction. That's kind of wild. It only lasts for 5 seconds, but again, I don't really like these because it's using hard CC, which, you know, I don't feel like should be used this way. It's giving it an extra usage though, so I guess maybe you'll see it more in 5-mans, but if all you're after is a 96% slow, I don't know. We'll see how that works out. Strike with Clarity is the Weapons of Order one, but doesn't really, no change. Really, it's just extra buff to this. I mean, that's a pretty big buff, I suppose. But the main change here is this yet again, all the way up to 60. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know what that means. I think this is just increases your mastery by an additional 1.25 times up to 60 now. So that's like a lot, I guess. Really big mastery buff, I guess, but it's only mastery, so like, I don't know. I would have liked to see its duration increased by higher. Then that's not the way I would do it. Swift transfer increases your movement speed by 10% and again all the way up to 30%. So yeah, Monk really has a mobility problem right now. They definitely need more mobility. Just kidding. Tumbling Technique. Blackout Kick, 6% chance to grant a charge or roll. I love the concept. Absolutely love the concept. It's a finesse conduit, but love the concept. And, you know, maybe someday we'll see this even higher. I'd love to see just, you know, monks just rolling all over the place. It's just such a cool idea. I love the idea. And then Way of the Fae, easily my favorite monk, Soulbind. Nope. Easily my favorite monk ability from the Covenants. Anyway, Phalanx Stump does 5% more damage and up to a maximum of 27.5% additional damage. So it's got a little cap on it there, so you're not hitting so many people, I guess. But this starts at 5.5% now, goes all the way to 13. So not the biggest of the buffs for all of those abilities. But yeah, Night Fae is definitely already pretty good for Brewmaster, so I don't think it needs much more. So. And then this is some nonsense. Okay, so anyway, there's nothing here going on with Paladin at all. Almost no changes whatsoever. They changed Avenger's Shield to not have 3 ranks anymore, but I think that was just some weird, I don't know what that even means. Some basically every 5 shield of the righteous makes your next word of glory. It should be every 5 shield of the righteous, shouldn't it be? That's not my forte. Sense Undead, no change there. So I guess that's pretty much it. We'll take a look at Warrior now. I think this is just new. I don't know. Haven't really kept tabs on these very fiercely, but I think this is just actually a new one. They added Fueled by Violence. You're healed by 15% of the damage dealt by deep wounds and goes all the way up to 36%. I have to imagine it's just brand new because there's no green and nothing here. So that's interesting. How much does deep wounds do over the course of a dungeon? I don't know if 36% of that damage would be a consequential amount of healing, but it is anytime Prot Warrior gains healing, they gain my respect because that's the main reason I don't play them. They just don't have any fun healing interactions, and I would say that without that, they are a lot less intriguing to me. Anyway, Show of Force Revenge increases the damage of your next Thunderclap by 12%, but it starts way lower now and gets even lower. So I think, you know, you might see this over the course of the expansion. This happens all the time. Happened with Blood DK. The tank that was like, you know, maybe a little bit too strong for too many reasons, it's going to be held back now a little bit. So I do not think they want Warrior to be top damage anymore. I think they just need the game to be slightly different, even though there's not really any reason for that. I think that's what they're going to do, so they're probably going to continue to nerf a lot of these offensive. We've seen this week after week now where they continue to look like they're nerfing offensive stuff, but not all nerfed. Endurance Conduit Last Stand increase your rage generation by 30%, but that actually hasn't really changed. They just changed the scaling now only to 72%. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. I'm not really sure what the hell that is. Last Stand. So I guess during Last Stand, you just generate 72% more rage, which is kind of wild. But we'll see. And Last Stand is not on the anger management thing anymore, right? Is that right? So, yeah. If this was in BFA, it would have been wild. Anyway, Ashen Juggernaut, Potency Conduit Execute increases the critical strike chance of Execute by 3%, stacking up to 8 times. So that's not ever really going to happen for Warrior Tank, I don't believe, but you never know. But now it goes all the way to 6%, so that's pretty wild. 6 times 8. I mean, what is that? 6 times 8. 143%. That is a lot. Anyway, Brutal Vitality. 6% of your damage you deal adds to your active Ignore Pain, and that is has been nerfed. Yeah, okay, so that's not green, but that's what it is. Now down to 9.6%. So again, Probably a little overcautious on tuning offensive interactions. Destructive Reverberation. This is Ancient Aftershock. This must be the Night Fae one, if I remember the name. Cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds, and its damage is increased by 4%. So now, it used to be reduced by 16 seconds was what was being modified. They changed that now to do more damage. Like we said with some of the other tanks, they're looking like they're doing this with all of it. So, that's a pretty big deal. 32% extra damage on top of this ability. Don't actually remember the CD, but that's probably very good. Disturb the Peace. Pretty cool. Piercing Howl's cooldown is reduced by 5% or 5 seconds. So up to 12 seconds. Probably never going to use that, I can't imagine. But it's a finesse conduit, so maybe there's value in it. When it's not a potency conduit, you never know. Anyway, Harrowing Punishment. Condemned damage dealt and prevented are increased by 1.5% for each nearby enemy up to 8%. So that is a wild nerf from 8% for each enemy down to 1.5 baseline all the way only up to 3%. So under 30% of what it was at the start now at the end. So wild nerf, like I was saying. Surprised, but not surprised. Victory Rush heals you for 200% of the damage it dealt over 8 seconds. I was really looking forward to this one. So it was like the only one I was actually interested in. The only thing that was going to make me interested in Warrior. Went from 400% up to 800. Now it's 2 to 480. 480%. So, that still might be good. I doubt it though. I don't know. Again, keep that in mind. Inspiring Presence. Rallying Cry's duration and health granted increased by 20%. So that's actually a pretty good one. That's one of very few that are in the game that still, have a good synergy with like large groups. And this one has been only slightly altered to 48%. So this could have really been a big nerf, but they didn't. They chose not to. I like this because, first of all, like the longer duration is nice, but the health granted is even nicer. So Kraut Warrior is going to be really good. And I guess you can take this as a DPS warrior too, of course. So yeah, finesse conduit, pretty good. Anyway, Piercing Verdict, Spear of Bastion's instant damage and rage generation are increased by 25%. So that's a huge buff. Again, I don't think that ever really needed any damage, but it is already one of the most powerful damaging abilities. So another big damage buff there. Safeguard. Intervene, reduce damage taken by 8% and down to 22 at the maximum. Not that big of a change. Safeguard, Intervene in general has been something that a lot of people have been messing with, talking a lot about. And again, this is also something that other warriors can use now, so pretty cool. We'll see, like that could be really good for 5-mans if you have a DPS warrior. Anyway, Stalwart Guardian, cooldown of shield wall is reduced by 20 seconds, Jesus. But it goes still up to 48, so... Wait, it says 40. Reduced by 40, but it didn't start at 40, at least not according to this. I'm not really sure. Protection initial. Maybe it was like this. I'm not really sure. So anyway, either way, if this is true, it's still 48% or 48 seconds on shield wall. So it's kind of a longer CD, but that's still pretty good. Anyway, Veteran's Repute. Conqueror's Banner immediately grants you 5 glory, and while the banner is planted, your strength is increased by 10%. So, yeah, this has been slightly nerfed too. So, it's kind of funny because they buffed a lot of these, or some of the tanks, I guess the tanks that needed more offense, and then they nerfed it for the tanks that didn't. Well, ironically, Vengeance really didn't get nerfed, but anyway, one other big change here. It's just a post. Catching this is talking about Druid Convoke the Spirits, which again, I just think really... The Druid Covenant abilities are a complete mess. I think it is a function of the fact that there's 4 specs and they had to make them for all 4. It's really a complete mess, though. I don't even know what Covenant I would take at this point, honestly. But anyway, I know you've seen some ongoing tuning to Covenant abilities on beta. One recent update that's not visible is Convoke the Spirits will now try to use a more consistent number of current form abilities. There are exceptions, for example, if no hostiles are in range, Convoke will use 12 friendly spells regardless of spec, but on average, Convoke should be much more consistently using 7 to 8 current form spells. I just don't like this concept. I never did. We'll see how it plays out. I think it has the potential to be very powerful, especially if it picks Ironfur or whatever, however it works, 8 times or something like that. That would be kind of ridiculous, but I just don't like how random it could be, But I'm interested to see, because it'd be cool to see a time when you actually do like a ton of healing. The one thing I will say about Guardian with the situation here is that I think they're going to have a lot more potential to do like off healing and be more of like a support tank coming up in Shadowlands. And even though, you know, you can only really have 2 tanks, if there was ever a case to have a 3rd tank, I think Guardian, you used to be like Blood DK was like a great 3rd tank, you know, because the grips and everything. I think Guardian makes an excellent 3rd tank. So like, you know, you got somebody who's playing Bombkin, maybe they switch to Guardian, or even God forbid they start Feral. They switch to Guardian here and there. That could be really valuable because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff that could also, I mean, this could also just work as balance. Like, you know what I mean? It's not only for Guardian. So, but a lot of the concepts kind of carry over. So more Druids, the better, I feel like. And that's it. They also changed the experience. I wanted to bring that up because we brought it up in the last video. It's pretty, you know, relatively big buff again, back to pretty much where they were. But they also made the experience you get from kills higher. So I still don't know what to think. Months ago when I leveled like a bunch of characters, I was getting to 1 or whatever it is now. I was going to say 130. I was getting to 60 without even finishing the campaign. Then they like heavily altered it, and then I wasn't even getting to 60. Like you literally couldn't get to 60. Then they nerfed it by 40%, and now they buffed it by what? Like I don't know. I don't know what divisor even means. Does that mean it's a 9% buff? I don't know. Either way, they buffed it back up, but then they also adjusted the experience per kill, which I think is good because a lot of times, a lot of these quests are like really heavy kill. You know, kill a lot of mobs and stuff. So I'm satisfied with this. We'll see how it plays. I just don't want to be either done way early or done way late. Let's put it that way. Like I think the last ability or the last quest you do should be you finishing the campaign, and that would be perfect. Like, you know, if that's possible without war mode on, then it will make it so it's more approachable in the future when you have more buffs and more things that come in to make leveling even faster. And I would just like to see it that way. So, but then yeah, anyway, the Soulbind calculator, definitely make sure you guys are checking this stuff out. But that's it, long video. Hopefully you guys are interested in this conversation about tanks, because there's a lot of changes that happened to the conduits especially. And between legendaries last few weeks and conduits, I think we're really seeing, you know, kind of the why of the delay. There was a lot more tuning than I would have expected. I'm surprised, especially some of these Blood DK ones. I'm surprised to see them because, you know, they didn't feel like they were that powerful. Like this one really didn't feel like it was that powerful. You know what I mean? 5% of maximum health maybe was too small, but now the fact that we're not even going to reach 5% just kind of, you know, honestly, it makes me a little sad because I was really looking forward to that. So.